lot, not just in Italy, but in other places. There are investigations ongoing. There are accusations of all sorts of, questionable practices from Deutsche Bank. And it seems to me as though there is a definite either Deutsche Bank has become an extreme criminal operation, or there is a need to demonize them, not only in financial circles, but in the public's mind, so that any sort of business that would be dealt with them in any other country would be seen as suspect automatically. Now, the Italians, they have a reputation for, corruption, let's be honest, because, look, and I say this with a vowel at the end of my name, okay, and only a couple of generations here from there. I'll tell you something, corruption and Italy go together like hand and glove and glove in hand. It's just that simple, because the government often ends up being weak and bought off. Now, I don't know if that prevails to this day, but I mean, it used to take you months to get a letter from Italy. All right. It's very simple. Okay. And it did. It would take you you could literally go on vacation in Italy, send yourself a postcard, and come back, 3 weeks later from Italy, and you might see your letter another 6 weeks later arrive at your doorstep. In America. A little odd. I mean, they can't even run a post office there. That's the way it used to be. Okay. So, Italy has its own history where, you can see them having problems and collapsing, and usually through self-inflicted wounds. But this is a little different with Deutsche Bank. I think there's an agenda at play here to make sure that they cannot be a player in the global financial market to try and, paint them with the ugly side of the stick. I mean, or am I misreading this?
No, I think that's probably true. Italy is looking to find a villain for their situation. And since they can't go after the EU Commission for creating the euro, whoever, the elites that created the euro and then the Commission for the fascist dictatorship, since they can't go after the euro creators of the currency, they're going to go after the predatory banks. Now, the German banks showed their colors in Greece by demanding, severe, what do they call it, austerity in the Greek budget, and they came in with asset seizures, and it was pretty ugly. A lot of demonstrations, a lot of rioting, people were killed, banks got messed up, bank runs in Greece. Italy doesn't want that, so they're trying to stop it by creating, a villain, by just having a tremendous amount of self-purchases of their bonds. And I don't think it's going to work. I think it just extends a little bit of time, and then everything turns to crap. Hola. I don't think they're going to be able to hold things together with the Italian banks. Patches don't work. This isn't about, difficult business conditions, moving mail and things like. Okay, that's all, kind of sexy to hear about, interesting. But we have the banks all across Italy that are failing. They're insolvent, and all you need with an insolvent group of banks is to cut back on liquidity, and you've got some big problems, and that is exactly what I've been talking about, a cutback of liquidity from the Euro Central Bank and the Germans dumping. Okay, you got your illiquidity right at the doorstep when insolvency's been there for 3 years. That's my assessment of Italy.
Well, right, but the insolvency, the reason why I mentioned the operations of government is that when you talk about anybody who would have had oversight over any of these financial dealings, forget it. It's not part of the culture there. There's always something bought off, and I'm wondering who's really running this, and is this an engineered collapse? Because when this does finally go completely south, what kind of pressure is that going to create in the EU? We know that, Italy will have to suffer through something, but that'll change the landscape, won't it? I mean, because it's a significant partner in the EU. So what are we talking about as results here when this does finally blow up in, somebody's face?
Well, they're not trying to engineer a collapse of Italy. They're trying to cut back on the hyper-monetary inflation at the central banks. like the Fed and the Euro Central Bank. The Euro Central Bank is just as bad in their African and South American style of hyper-monetary inflation. They're equal. They're equal villains. It's not going well. Now, the problem is that the major central banks want to cut back, and they don't want the damage from their cutbacks. But they won't be able to avoid it. The U.S. is going to get a recession. We already got a recession. We're in our 9th straight year of the recession.
Yeah, I was going to say, when did it end? What do you mean we're going to get? We already got, right?
Yeah, well, what you're going to get is a aggravated recession.
Ah, there's the term.
I mean, you've got a chronic recession now, and it's going to turn aggravated. An aggravated chronic recession is what they call a depression. I mean, I'm just playing with words and semantics here. No one wants to use the word depression for the United States economy. They don't even like much the recession. It's a sluggish recovery. If you're at minus 3% on your growth, that's a sluggish growth. Well, really? All you do is lie by 3% on your inflation and call that 3% growth, and your minus 3 becomes 0, and you're back to sluggish growth. That's what we do. We lie about inflation and call it growth. We've had 6, 8, 9% inflation for many years. We're calling it 2 and 3, so we're lying by 5% or more, calling it growth. We've got a stuck situation. You don't look at the newspaper to find out what inflation is in the society and economy. Main Street. You look at your utility bill. You look at your food bill. You look at various other things. Maybe not so much clothing. Fees for water, fees for sewer. There are property tax hikes that are being called in many cities, even though they're in bad shape, just because the cities need more money. They need to, fix their pension shortfalls. I mean, let's not even talk about Dallas. That's a completely different situation. But, Italy is going down, and they're looking for someone to attach, like fingernails in the neck and shoulder. Just attach. While they're going down, maybe they can drag down Deutsche Bank. If you see the Italian banks go down like 2 or 3, then it's 6, you're going to see some German banks dead. You're going to see some French banks dead. There's more French bank exposure to Italian debt than there is German bank exposure. That's very little known fact. This is the kind of stuff I put in the hat trick letter, with charts showing, oh, look at that. The biggest bar there is France. The next one is Germany. Wow, France has more Italian debt exposure. I like putting in charts to make them, not just pretty pictures, but tell the story in a way that, you can recall an image in your head 6 months later. So, yeah, I saw that bar chart. France was number 1. This is I just don't know when, but it's going to blow. In Italy, it's going to blow.
Yeah, well, it has to. I mean, it's just, it's kind of inevitable at this point. And it makes it even far more interesting to me that, you have the Brexit situation, okay, and the threats of other exits. I don't know if that would really change the ultimate outcome here if we have a collapse which leads to, a banking collapse, let's just say, in Italy that leads to consequences in France, consequences in Germany. I don't know that that's going to give anybody a shield, even if they try to exit at this point, which takes a couple of years to do. I don't think that that's going to shield anybody from the fallout. Now, what's fascinating to me is that it's going to have an effect on the U.S. as well, too.
Yeah, well, what I have not addressed yet is what happens to Italy if these things happen. What happens if you have some bank woes, 1 or 2 banks go down? We know the candidates. What happens if they take down 5 banks and cause a contagion in France and Germany? I'll tell you what's going to happen. There's going to be a radical movement inside Italy to abandon the euro, go to the old lira, and move perhaps around 2/3 of their debt, whatever is legal, EU debt in Italy can move back to the lira. The French have established that now. That was one of the things Le Pen did, even though she had the election stolen from her. She looked into seeing how much of the French government debt could be moved into the French franc because it was pre-EU. And the answer was, I think, around 60%. And I think for Italy, it's a little higher, like 65%. Okay, Italy might go back to the lira.